Guten Morgen, it's Morgan. Welcome to Murder in the Morning. Get unready with me while I talk about a true crime story. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. So today we're going to be talking about Lavinia Fisher. There is a legend about her, so basically I'm going to be saying obviously the true crime, but I'm going to be distinguishing what's true versus what's the legend, because the legend has some crazy stuff out there that is not true at all. So I'm not going to go completely into the legend, but I'm just going to tell the true story and then add some tidbits about what the legend says. So I'm going to be doing my skincare instead of my makeup today. So Lavinia Fisher was born 1793, and we don't really know where she originated, but she spent most of her life in Charleston, South Carolina. She was married to John Fisher, who is also going to be a big part of this story. So like I said, they resided most of their lives in Charleston, South Carolina, because they had a hotel called 6 Mile Wayfarer House, because it was 6 miles north of Charleston, South Carolina, hence the name. So it wasn't very original. They had people that were travelers come and stop there. Again, hence the name 6 Mile Wayfarer House. So after a short amount of time of them having this open, there were many reports of people going there and then disappearing, never being seen again. This rumor was sent to the sheriff's department. They had no evidence to say otherwise, and the couple was very popular. Lavinia was known to be extremely beautiful and was able to charm men easily, even though she was married. And so with their popularity and no evidence, the police kind of just ignored this in a way. Even though they were popular, a vigilante gang went to the Fishers' neighborhood in 1819 and wanted to stop the gang activity. So basically they wanted to put a stop to the Fishers and all other gang activity going on there. And they went to another hotel called the 5 Mile House, and they burned it down. And then they go to the 6 Mile House and basically just clean up there. They left a man named David Ross to keep an eye out on what was going on. So the next day, the day after this vigilante group leaves, and David Ross is their lookout kind of guy, he gets attacked by 2 men and dragged before the gang. Like I said, the gang activity that this vigilante gang was trying to stop. He gets pulled in front of this gang, and he sees Lavinia Fisher in the crowd, and he kind of looks to her and is like, help me. But instead of helping him, she choked him and then smashed his head through a window. Somehow he escapes, and then he runs and tells authorities. So shortly, basically immediately after this incident, another man comes to the hotel, and the rumor was that, and the legend goes, that she would give a man tea and it would put him to sleep, and then they would rob him or kill him. This traveler comes in and he needs a room, and she says, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have any room, but you're welcome to, sit here and eat and rest a little bit. And as he's eating and resting, she chats him up. Later he says it felt like an interrogation, but because she was so beautiful, he just kind of ignored his warning signs. After talking to her for a long time, and he kind of noticed her husband staring at him, she says, oh, good news, there is room at our hotel, so I'm gonna go get you set up for this room. Would you like some tea? And he was like, he didn't want to seem impolite, but he doesn't like tea. So he said, yes, I'll take some tea. She poured him some tea, and then while she wasn't looking, he poured it out, because he doesn't like tea. Then he goes back to his room. After, settling in, he's like, well, it was weird. She was interrogating me for quite a while, asking me all these questions about my job and all of this stuff. And her husband just kept staring at me. And so he didn't feel very comfortable. He was scared he might get robbed. So he decided to sleep in the chair next to the door instead of sleeping in the bed in case anyone tried to rob him. So it was a good thing that he did this, because he said that he woke up to a sound and saw the bed snap close and fall into a pit, where some sources say this could be the legend that John, the husband, was waiting at the bottom with an axe. So he gets out of there, goes and tells the authorities. With all this information, the authorities go to arrest Lavinia and John Fisher. So since the authorities, the only thing they were really waiting on was to have evidence or proof that Lavinia and John were involved in some way, these two accounts were vital in getting them arrested. So when the police came, John tried to say, oh, it was just me, like Lavinia had nothing to do with it. He sold out the other gang members, and she still gets arrested. So they were charged with highway robbery, and this was a hanging offense at the time. While they were awaiting trial, police did a search of the area, and a grave was found of 2 human bodies. It was about 200 yards away from the 5 Mile house. The bodies were of a white man and a black woman. They'd been dead for a while, so they weren't able to identify them. And they said since there were so many people coming and going from 6 Mile house, there was no way to determine who the killers were. But obviously a lot of people suspected that it was Lavinia and John. So the difference is, this is a huge difference. The legend says that they found hundreds of bodies, that there were secret tunnels underneath the house, and they found trinkets from the people they had killed, and that basically that there were pits even with spikes at the bottom of where they would drop the bed down into, and that they had killed hundreds and hundreds of people. There's no evidence to support this whatsoever. The only 2 bodies found were those 2, and there was still no link or evidence that they killed them. But the fact that they were 1 in a gang, and 2 that the guy literally saw his bed collapse and fall makes me think that they had done this before. And even if it was just robbing, no, because I feel like a collapsing bed would kill someone. I don't know. I think that if his account was true, then I think that, yeah, they had more to do with it than, obviously the evidence doesn't show enough or really anything, but that doesn't mean that they didn't do anything. They could have just been good at covering their tracks. So while they pled not guilty, the jury did find them guilty. They were set for appeal with the Constitutional Court. And while they were awaiting the hearing, the appeal, since they were married, they were actually kept together. So they had their own little cell with just the 2 of them, and so they came up with a plan to escape. They tied some jail linens together and created a rope. John was actually able to escape, but the rope broke before Lavinia could get out, and like a good husband, he decided he would rather be in prison and possibly die because highway robbery was a death penalty offense. So he decided to get caught again, and he went back. But then they were under more security once he was caught, obviously. So this appeal ended up getting rejected by the Constitutional Court, and they could do nothing but wait for execution. So a reverend came to visit them, and John decided to make peace with it and, become Christian and all of that stuff. But Lavinia had no part with it. They said she was more likely to curse than pray. So on February 4th, 1820, they were taken to the gallows, and they were each wearing a loose fitted white robe over their clothes. It was a public execution, and everyone, including the fine ladies of Charleston, watched Lavinia and John Fisher hang. They said that John went calmly and peacefully up to the gallows, but Lavinia had to be basically dragged and forced onto the platform. The whole time she was just shrieking and cursing and yelling at everyone and swearing, and she was very angry, whereas her husband was the exact complete opposite. He was very calm. So then the Reverend read a letter from John, and it said basically that he's a changed man and that he's innocent. And, then John goes on to say his innocence, but then in the end he asks for their forgiveness. And so it's kind of like, why would you ask for forgiveness if you're innocent? And he even said that the witness who accused him of this was coached, and that basically his testimony was false. And then Lavinia, this part is true, she went down with, some gusto, and she says, if you have a message you want me to send, downstairs, give it to me, I'll carry it. So basically she knows that she's going downstairs, and it's just like, why would you be going there unless, you are guilty? And just kind of, what a way to end. What a way to go out. So they ended up being buried in a potter's field. And now I'm going to get into kind of the legend part. I already said that the legend says that they murdered hundreds of people and that they were very wicked about the way they went about it, pits and spikes and tunnels and all of this stuff, and not just like that they were robbing them. They did rob them according to the legend, but also pits and stuff. The execution also, they said that she wore a wedding dress because in the legend in South Carolina, you can't execute a married woman. And so she goes, you can't kill me, I'm married. And they go, oh, we're just going to kill your husband first, and then you'll be a widow, and then we'll kill you the next day. And so she wore her wedding dress for a couple of reasons: to try and get someone to marry her. Like I said, she was very beautiful. And so she was hoping someone would marry her while she was there so they couldn't kill her. Another source says that she was doing it so that the devil would marry her once she got down there. Another possibility is that she just wanted to remind them that she, even though her husband was dead, that she was married, that they can't do this to her. So basically, she didn't think that she'd be executed until like it really happened. She thought that, they'd find her innocent or she couldn't be killed because she was married. That is not actual law, never has been law, so that is completely fake. And then another part of the legend is that when they have her tied up and everything, she says, give me a message if you want me to take it for you. And then she jumps off of the gallows to kill herself so that they can't. But that, obviously it didn't kill her right away. And so she was struggling there for like 12 minutes. It's so weird that they have like 12 minutes of something that's not even true. They're like, yeah, it was 12 minutes as she was just chilling there, but that didn't even happen. So yeah, they really made her out to be way more powerful, way more of a villain than she actually was. That, she wore a wedding dress and tried to kill herself and was rampaging. And I mean, she was rampaging, so that did happen. But that they killed hundreds of people and that there was proof of it. That's the thing that bugged me the most, is they tried, so many of these sources and legends said that they found bodies. And then when you go check the actual documentation, that's not true. They only ever found those 2 bodies, and she did not wear a wedding dress. Still crazy to think that you could just be going to a hotel and then someone drugs your tea and then they collapse the bed on you. Like, that would be so scary. Do you think that the jury made the right decision? Do you think that they had ever killed anyone? Do you think they deserve the death penalty? I think if there's not any actual evidence that they had done this but technically there was the witness who said that they were gonna that they did collapse his bed, and that if he had been there, he would have been put down into the pit. So it's just hard. Obviously they did admit to being in a gang and to, there was proof that they had robbed people. I don't know. It's just, I feel weird about this one because there's no hard evidence that they ever killed anyone, but they weren't even charged or found guilty for killing anyone. The legend just says that she was the first female serial killer in the United States of America, which also is not true. So let me know what I should talk about next week, and thanks for listening. Here's my finished skincare results. Bye!